powerhouse in the world of track and field, the Bahamas experienced a bittersweet year in 2024. Devin Charlton smashed the 60-meter world record, a 6-meter hurdles world record, and sealed the world title in Glasgow in March, of course. But Shaune and Stephen Gardner, their megastars, were derailed by injury. So what does the future hold for the tiny islands of the mighty nation of the Bahamas, about 400,000 people? B3A's president, Drumeco Archer, attempts to shed some light on the challenges surrounding the biggest stars and opines on who will lead the next generation of track stars coming out of that incredible nation of athletes. Welcome to another episode of Out the Blocks on our SportsMax platforms. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, comment, like, and share our content. I'm Leighton Levy, and with me is the massive trackman and reggae crooner D Major. But before we go on, I want to express our joy at the tons of positive responses to our Olympic chat with Olympic champion Julian Alfred last week. Many of you agreed we should have had a longer chat, but alas, that's not the way it worked out. Perhaps we can get her back sometime in the near future. Until then, welcome, Sir Drumeco Archer, President of the Bahamian Athletics Association. Welcome to All the Blocks.
Welcome.
So thank you very much for having me. I can tell you that I was in Paris and I thought that it was a thrill to watch Julian run. In fact, when I was in the Games Village, I told her, I predicted that she would win, and she said, "Really, you think I can win?" I said, "Yeah, I think you could win. And besides, I like the colors that you wear."
Yeah, very similar, aren't they? Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of your stars, Drumeco. Start off the bat because we have a lot to get through. Last year, of course, we saw Devin Charlton break the world record in the 60-meter hurdles and, of course, win the world title. But things didn't work out quite so well for Shaune and, of course, Stephen Gardner, who were injured for the most part and were unable to represent the Bahamas as well as they would have liked. What's your current status like now? I mean, a few months after the Olympics and, of course, looking forward to 2025. What's their status now? Can you shed any light on that?
I am very optimistic about where we are in our program. Yes, I think that when you give a woman a rose, you just can't stop. And that is really the expectation of the world and no doubt our local community. And so with an illustrious 10-year span for both Shaune and Stephen, obviously there's an expectation. But I think that what we've done over the years is we've had the vision of trying to continue to produce new growth to the program. And so I think that we have a legion of new rising stars that I think will replace the likes of Shaune and Stephen Gardner. But let me say that this is really not the end for them. I think that there's a lot more in the gas tank. And so obviously let me preface it by saying that I do not speak for them. I'm not an agent of theirs, but I'm optimistic that you just don't end your career just like that. And so I'm expecting them to return to the big stage and deliver as the world expects for them to.
Yeah, because one of the things that I remember having a chat with Shaune back in 2021, I think it was, when she had mentioned that Paris may be her last Olympics. And of course, that we know she just had a baby just over a year ago. And then she had her injury challenges. But have you heard anything from her? I know you can't speak on her behalf, but has she informed the association of her decision to go forward or whether or not she's going to call it a day?
There's been no communication about the future of her career in track and field. And as I've mentioned, no news is oftentimes good news. But I think that we can well appreciate that seasons change, and Shaune has been just a giant for us. And I call both Stephen and Shaune the avatars of sport not only in the Bahamas, but throughout the world. But again, the sun does set. And I'm looking forward to new talent, new birth. And I think that what we've done is to put a real focus on our development programs. A lot of training and development, not only on the athletics side, but also on the coaching side. So I'm looking forward to a good junior program that we will be rolling out in the next season. And that will be the the laying of the foundation for years to come.
But before we get to the junior program, though, because I want to focus on that for much of what we're going to talk about today. But how important was it for Devin to win the world indoor title and set a world record last year? Not last year, but certainly last season. How big a deal was that for the Bahamas? Because I know you've had a number of hurdlers before, but she kind of broke the mold in 2024 by setting the world record and then winning the world indoor title.
I think amazingly we've had three outstanding hurdlers: Devin Charlton, Charisma Taylor, and Denisha Cartwright.
Right.
So that's a testament to the development of our program, and in particular that area. I think that Devin Charlton today, her success and her achievement is still understated. She is the best 60-meter hurdler in the world. And that's something that goes into the history books that can never be taken away from her. I've spoken with Devin more recently, and she has indicated that so long as she has feet that can move and move at the level that she wants to compete at, she'll continue to be back. And so I'm expecting her to be in full force. She said that she would start at training in the next 2 weeks. Obviously, next year is a very long season, and she's looking forward to championing back to the World Championships and doing well.
Of course, as you mentioned, the emerging talent, Denisha Cartwright and Charisma Taylor, they're the next step. They're the next generation. They're a generation next. Where are they now in terms of where the association would like them to be? Are they on the cusp of breaking through, or are they maybe still a year away?
Well, I think if you hurdles, particularly in the women's area, has a longer lifespan, and Denisha is quite young. I think she's just recently graduated from university. So I see longevity for her. I see her competing for the next 10 to 12 years. And her showing at the Olympic Games is a testament to where one would expect for her to be in LA. And I think that, I've always been of the view that Charisma is one of the toughest athletes that I've ever seen, and I expect for her to continue to do well. She will either make a decision as to whether she will focus solely on the triple jump or solely in the hurdles. But as it stands now, she's a standout in both events, and so I'm expecting her to also return next year.
Okay, greetings again, Sir President. Very nice shirt, by the way, familiar colors, Tell us, your grassroots programs, I hear you speaking about, upcoming talent a lot. Your grassroots programs, give us an idea of how that works on that side,
So we have a club-based system, very different from Jamaica, that I think its program is really driven by the high school programs. We're reaching to a point where there's a hybrid, because a lot of our clubs seem to have been adopting a lot of junior and senior high school students.
Okay.
And so that is a wonderful feeder program.
Yeah.
I remember Lord Sebastian Coke visiting the Bahamas several years ago, and he was at the stadium, and his question was, "Are you having a track and field event?" And we said, "No, this is a normal day of practice." So for the size of a country as the Bahamas, I think that there's a disproportionate interest in athletics versus other sport. And I think that is always good in the regeneration exercise of trying to produce new talent and new faces each day. And let me say this, we talk about the disappointing performance of Team Bahamas. And on one side, there is a bittersweet kind of experience not having a medal at the Olympic Games. But what I counter to that is to say that we've produced more athletes in the most diverse area of the sport than ever in our history. So we had representation in the throws, the jumps, and the sprints. And I think that's a good sign. I always talk about the outliers. Sometimes the outliers really isn't an indication of where the program really is. No, we have not produced the Usain Bolt or Shaune Miller Rebo, but I think that if we continue to churn it out, we'll find that diamond in the rough.
Yes, coach. So in regards to coaching, how do you hone the coaching talent and the pros in coaching on that side as well? Because you have to have people instructing the right way and preparing the juniors and seniors likewise. How does that work?
So over the years, you see tremendous talent at the junior level, and they fade away. And I think that science would tell you that sometimes our philosophy must change. When I was a little kid,
yes,
we used to play hopscotch, we used to play roundins, we used to play all kinds of fun kid stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that when you reflect on the way we developed, there was longevity in the sport, there was greater interest in the sport, and you went through different phases. I think that there's a revisiting of that approach. And in fact, World Athletics has revamped a training program called Kids Athletics Train the Trainer program. And the pilot of that took place in the Bahamas earlier this month. And I thought that that was amazing. What that did for us was it really ignited the interest of physical education teachers. So our focus is really educating physical education teachers at the primary school level. Because that's where the discovery really is. You can tell the endowments or the aptitude of any athlete just by the way they move, by the way they walk. And so that test is something that we've been looking at more closely. And it's been a really eye-opening experience for many of our physical education teachers that came out in very large numbers for that program.
Right. President, I'm not trying to disrespect you, but you mentioned hopscotch and such. Nowadays, it's tablets and laptop, But do you see the interest shifting, as you say? I mean, less juniors, becoming interested in sticking and staying within the sport nowadays?
I believe that track and field has maintained a sustainable level of interest in the Bahamas.
Right.
And that's really because, for the most part, like in Jamaica, it's a grassroots sport. And so track and field provides the greatest access or the easiest access to the sport, unlike golf or tennis or swimming.
Yeah.
However, globally, I think that we're under siege. And it's really a function of marketing in my mind. I think that at the end of the day, when FIFA pours millions of dollars into grassroots development, millions of dollars,
yes,
obviously their marketing is a very different marketing strategy. And it all started, in my estimation, when FIFA began televising a lot more of its events. And so the more people are following the sport, the more interest I think you can really engender. So for us, we among ourselves, Jamaica has led the way. The Bahamas, in its small way, in its small measure, has also tried to make its contribution to the sport. But we have to continue marketing and growing the sport exponentially throughout the world. And I think that marketing is really the key.
I wanted to ask you something. You said something earlier that piqued my interest. I mean, the Bahamas has been known for its sprinters, and more so. I mean, you're looking at Pauline Davis, David Ferguson, Chandra Stirrup. Of course, Donald Thomas being the exception in the long jump, and of course you have some in the high jump. You have some outstanding triple jumpers as well over the years. But you just mentioned something about diversity. We've seen young DRA Scott and Keyshawn Strawn, and of course I'm thinking about Brendan Vanderpool as well. Those field events, pole vault and the throws. Give us a sense of how that divergence works with the current programs in the Bahamas, because we've seen, Strawn was the character champion and record holder just a couple of seasons ago, I think in Jamaica that was. And of course, we've seen Vanderpool setting a record just last character games in the Grenada as well. Talk a little bit about the development of that side of the sport, in the field especially in the Bahamas.
Again, I think a lot of it has to do with how we tell the story of our sport. When I go to a world championship, it is exciting to watch a middle distance race or a long distance race.
Yeah.
It's just not sexy. And I think it's not sexy because we've not put enough interest and investment in those areas. I think that the physicality of Caribbean people, so long as we have the right coaching methodologies and the right coaching systems in place and personnel,
Yeah.
diversity must come. As you see in Jamaica, you have people bobsledding.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think you look at what you've done on the field, on the track, middle distance, long distance, high jump, long jump. You've led the way, and so it tells me that perhaps there is something that we're missing, and
Yes.
I believe that in the Bahamas we have the ability to field more 800-meter runners. You may not necessarily be the fastest,
Right.
but because of speed endurance and our general strength, no one can tell me why we can't produce some of the best middle distance runners in the world. That's not just in the Bahamas, but throughout the Caribbean.
Yes.
So our focus has been very different. And I've been speaking to coaches, and I say to them, listen, the 100 meters is perhaps the most difficult race in track and field. The 200 meters follow suit, as well as the 400 meters. But if an athlete has the requisite speed to be competitive, but not necessarily the top runner, but can run across country and win, tells me that you have the making of someone who can be an outstanding middle distance runner. And I've identified one. So that's a test that I'm about to test very soon.
What's that? Can you reveal who that talent is?
I'm going to put pressure on them. I believe that Alexis Roberts is certainly that talent. She's a qualifier in the 200 meters for World Juniors. All right?
Yes.
She didn't do very well. But in every mile race or middle distance race, she wins.
Okay.
So what does that tell you? If you can run 23 seconds in the 200 meters, and you can run, I don't know, 5-6 minutes in a mile, then that tells me that you can be an outstanding 800-meter runner.
Yeah, that's good range. That's definitely good range right there.
I wanted to diverge. I wanted to just jump out a little bit and ask this. Of course, Bahamas and Jamaica are famous for their sprinters. What do you think? There's this intense rivalry at the character level between Jamaica and the Bahamas.
I think that the answer is obvious, eh? we produced some of the best athletes in the world.
Yes,
and Jamaica is the rock star. The Bahamas is the Cinderella story. And I think that at the junior level is where you'll find a lot of that deep competition. But I think it's also the goodwill of the event. Everyone knows about Carifta. I would want a Carifta Games to come to the Bahamas before any other event coming to the Bahamas because the country follows Carifta.
Yes, yes.
And I think the brand itself in the Bahamas and in Jamaica is probably more widely known than anywhere else in the region.
Yes.
Yeah,
I believe...
And it's sufficient to understand why the United States wants to be a part of the Carifta movement.
Yeah, President, I agree that the rivalry stems from the junior level because I think you hosted Carifta Games and I can remember clearly Shaune and Sharika was going at it in the 200.
Yeah,
that's right.
So from there, it was always a stout rivalry.
Because it was Shaune who was the first person to beat Sharika at Carifta.
Yes. So, President, I think, we all owe you, as far as I can think, the way athletes are introduced now for finals globally, I think the Bahamas are responsible for, for innovating this the first time, the walkout, the flag on the screen and such. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
At the World Relays, yes?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. So I think, I don't know if you're partnering that whole thing, but we all owe that to you, I believe.
Well, I'll tell you, I was the CEO of the most recent World Relays.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've been focusing on more deeply is the innovation of the sport. And in many ways, the World Relays gives you that kind of latitude.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that the sport cannot grow unless there's a component of entertainment,
Yeah.
suspense, rivalry. And really, again, it goes back to matchups and the athletes and the personality and this whole sense of suspense.
Yeah.
That when I come to an event, I come to watch, I come to be entertained, like Eddie Murphy and Iman would say in the Michael Jackson video, Remember the Time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for me, that's really what is lacking to my mind in the sport. It can be an expensive undertaking.
Yeah.
But
No.
track and field needs to mimic itself
Yes.
and understand that really with dead spots, you need to create a Super Bowl kind of environment. And that's
Indeed.
what people will see. And then they can become converters to say, oh, you know, I really love this sport. But the thing that brought me here was to see the likes of you coming to entertain us and to really be a part of the whole show.
I want to ask you a couple of things quickly because we're rapidly running out of time. Are you concerned that there is no apparent heir to? You mentioned we started out talking about Stephen Gardner, but behind him, is there a clear candidate for someone to step into his space as world champion or possible Olympic champion over the 400 meters? Given the Bahamas' strength in that event over the years, we've seen Tonya Williams winning at the Olympics, and of course Shaune winning world and Olympic titles, and Stephen Gardner world and Olympic champion. Are you concerned any at all that the Bahamas doesn't have an heir apparent to Stephen Gardner right now?
Always, and I think that even Jamaica has similar challenges. I don't know if the world has found a replacement for Usain Bolt.
No.
These were, as I like to use the term, these were avatars of the sport. Very different. And so it's going to be difficult replacing a Stephen Gardner. I mean, he's just a freak of nature. We've some athletes that I think can rival or come very close. But that's why we continue to dig and continue to develop and continue to discover. And that's really the challenge of our sport, finding the next big hit. And so that is what we're doing. I can't give you definitive answers, but I think that that's really a function of coaching and administration. To have a clear vision about where we are and where we want to be.
A couple of final questions left. Terence Jones, clearly talented athlete. You know, where is he at in your mind, and how soon do you think he'll be able to really break through on the global stage? Because we've seen the talent at the collegiate level, and he's someone who you can see is just a smidgen away from becoming an elite sprinter. What's your thoughts on his progress, and you know, what do you expect from him in the next coming season?
Well, let me say this. It gives me joy when I see an athlete crushed, when an athlete cries, and that very same athlete returns, because it toughens his bark. And I think that to be an outstanding athlete, you have to be an outstanding pupil.
Yes.
And I believe that Terence Jones will be reshaped in a new environment, and understanding his abilities will be manifested through his coach and his training staff. I'm expecting Terence to be one of the top sprinters in the world in the next 3 years. And I think that this is just the evolution of his own development. And the same can be said for some of the other athletes. Let us not forget that it's all here. It's all here. I mean, we all can run fast.
Yeah.
But preparing and really taking the sport seriously is what really separates one from the other.
Yeah.
But I do not discount, when we talk about sprinting in the Bahamas, Terence Jones is certainly one of those that I'm looking for. But I'm also looking for Wanya McCoy. who I think is equally talented, and his range is as far and vast as Terence.
All right. Well, certainly some good news to end on, Sir Archer. Of course, as you know, we are direct rivals in the Caribbean, but certainly it's a rivalry that has helped the Caribbean more than it has hurt the Caribbean, because we've seen immense talent coming through from both countries, and of course with people like Julian Alfred now, similar colors to your to the Bahamas.
Yeah, so I can say that's the Bahamas.
But we really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. And of course, looking forward to further chats with you as things develop on the Bahamas.
But before I go,
Yeah.
I want to say this as a charge for the entire region, and that is, we have to look at the sport beyond just the competition. We have to look at the sport as a business. And the Bahamas has been wonderful in the area of banking and finance. I think that if we had to harness everything that the sport offers, not just track and field, but other sport, we must begin to sell the entire package.
Yes.
You know, both broadcasting, having regular meetings and track and field competitions, and really developing the sport in our own image and likeness, and take ownership of the thing that I think that we have the talent to do.
Yes.
Yep.
Finding ways.
Level as well as at the athletic level.
Finding ways to collaborate like that as a region.
100%.
Would be massive.
But thank you so much again, Drumeco, and of course, stay safe, and we'll be in touch.
All right.
And my apologies for the technical difficulties.
All right, no problem at all. Take it easy. All right, so last week, of course, I want to thank Drumeco Archer, president of the Bahamas Athletics Association, for joining us.
Indeed.
Last week, we had Julian Alfred on the show, and of course, the response has been absolutely outstanding. I want to share some of the comments with you from some of the viewers. Of course, Patricia Brown said, "Congratulations, lady, you made the Caribbean proud. Lit." And of course, I'm Mia Grace, of course. I'm Jamaican. I'm smiling, feeling really happy for Julian.
Big up Jojo.
Of course, Josam 4545. Her personality is coming through, and it's showing so beautifully. She's a star. Janaya Halfe says, "We love Julian Alfred."
Indeed.
And of course, Antilla Charles says, "After this time, I still cry listening to Juju's story. The emotions just flow."
Nice.
And of course, Sharon Terrell says, "Great interview. Juju, our queen, our goddess. Thank you, Juju. We love you." And finally, Bradley Larcher says, "Juju has made her island stand out in the world, and she's just getting started." And of course, that brings us to the end of our show for today. Of course, on behalf of D Major, of course, I want to thank, first of all, Drumeco Archer for being on and being so candid about the Bahamas and what's going on there in their track and field environment. On behalf of D Major and myself, we're saying goodbye. Just remember to subscribe, share, and like. And until next week, until we join you again,
Peace.
on Out the
Love.
Blocks, peace out.
Yes.